Admiral James Cole had been awake since 4 in the morning, not because of any alarm or emergency, just one of those nights where sleep refuses to come, and the mind keeps running through old problems. He sat in his office at Earth Defense Command, boots off, feet on the desk, holding a coffee mug that had gone cold an hour ago. Outside the thick reinforced windows, he could see the lights of the base slowly coming alive as the morning shift started. Normal, quiet, boring in the best possible way. He liked boring. Boring meant nobody was dying. He was reading a supply report from Colony 7 when the ceiling lights switched from white to red. Not a test. The base ran drills every third Thursday, and today was Tuesday. Cole's feet hit the floor before the alarm even finished its first scream. Lieutenant Danny Walsh came through the door at a full run, nearly slipping on the smooth floor. The kid was 26 years old and usually had the kind of calm face that made him good at poker. Right now, he looked like he had seen something that broke his brain. "Sir." Walsh stopped, caught his breath. 12 ships just appeared at the edge of the system. Cole was already pulling on his boots. "Appeared how?" "That's the thing, sir. We don't know. No jump signatures. No energy trails. No warning. 1 second the sensors showed empty space. Next second, 12 contacts. Just sitting there." Cole walked fast toward the command center, Walsh half jogging to keep up. "What do we know about them?" "Nothing, sir. No design match in any database. No response to standard hails. They are just waiting." The command center was already packed when Cole walked in. Every screen was lit up. Every face was tense. The main tactical display showed the 12 ships at the edge of the solar system, arranged in a perfect V formation. Cole studied them for a moment. They were enormous. The sensors were reading each one at roughly the size of a mid-sized city. Their hulls had this strange quality, smooth and curved, surfaces that seemed to shift color slightly, like oil on water but made of metal. They were honestly beautiful. That somehow made them worse. "Any movement?" Cole asked. "Negative, sir. Holding position. No active weapon signatures detected. But, sir, their power readings." The sensor operator paused. "I've never seen numbers like that." Cole pulled up the power data on his personal screen and stared at it for a long moment. Then he set the screen face down on the console because he did not want his staff to see his expression. Then the main screen flickered. The alien that appeared looked nothing like the small gray creatures from old science fiction movies. This one was tall, with a body that seemed partly solid and partly made of shifting light. Its skin, if you could call it that, moved in slow blue and white patterns, like watching clouds through a crystal window. When it spoke, the translator took about 2 seconds to catch up, turning whatever sound it made into flat, clean English. "I am High Commander Voss of the Hegemony Council. We speak for 400 civilizations across this galaxy. We have watched your species for some time now. You have claimed 17 worlds without permission. You build warships when you should be building temples. You have no authority to expand further." Nobody in the command center made a sound. Voss continued, no emotion in his voice at all, the way someone reads a shopping list. "You have 72 hours. Abandon every colony beyond your birth world. Accept protection status under hegemony guidance. Or every world you have ever touched will be cleaned of human life. We will wait." The screen went dark. Cole stood very still for about 5 seconds. Around him, he could hear the hum of equipment, someone breathing too fast, the quiet sound of someone else gripping the edge of a console hard enough that the knuckles probably went white. He turned to Walsh. "Get me a secure line to President Harris. Priority 1. He paused. "And open the Black Channel. Deep Station 7. Tell them the code word is Prometheus." Walsh blinked. "Sir, I don't have Deep Station 7 in any of our records." "I know," Cole said. "Send it anyway. They'll understand." President David Harris looked like a man who had just been told the building was on fire, and the exits were locked. He was still in his evening clothes when the secure call connected, which meant someone had pulled him out of dinner or a meeting or maybe even bed. His hair was slightly off. His tie was loose. For a man who spent his entire career looking composed in front of cameras, he looked remarkably human right now. Scared in the same quiet way that regular people get scared when something is genuinely too big to pretend away. Cole did not waste time. He laid it out clean and fast. 12 ships. Unknown origin. 72-hour ultimatum. Surrender all colonies or face extinction. He kept his voice level the whole time because someone in the room had to be level. Harris listened without interrupting. When Cole finished, the president was quiet for a moment. Then he said, "Protocol Prometheus." "James, that was theoretical. That was a contingency plan on paper." "Sir, it was never on paper. We have been building for 30 years. Harris rubbed his face with both hands. The kind of gesture a man makes when he is trying to physically push exhaustion away. How many people know about this? Enough to make it real. Not enough to cause a leak. On a second screen, General Frank Miller joined the call. Miller was 61 years old, gray-haired, with a kind of face that looked like it had been carved rather than born. He had been chairman of the Joint Chiefs for 6 years, and before that he had spent 4 decades in uniform doing jobs that never made it into any official record. He did not look surprised. He looked like a man who had been waiting for a specific phone call and had finally received it. "Admiral Cole," Miller said, "you are requesting full activation of the Dark Fleet program." "Yes, sir. All 57 ships. Full crew, full weapons load, everything." Miller nodded once. No hesitation. Harris looked between both screens. "If we do this and it goes wrong, there is no diplomatic recovery. These are representatives of 12 species, possibly hundreds more behind them." "Sir," Cole said carefully, "they did not come here to negotiate. They came here to watch us kneel. There is no version of this where being polite saves us." The president closed his eyes, took one long breath, opened them again. "Authorized. Full activation. Do whatever you need to do." He paused. "Bring us through this, James." The screens went dark. 300 million kilometers away, deep inside the asteroid belt, something that had been sleeping for 6 months began to wake up. From the outside, it looked like an ordinary rock. Big, gray, pitted with craters, tumbling slowly on an unremarkable orbit. Thousands of rocks, just like it floated in the belt. Nobody looked twice. That was entirely the point. Inside, it was something else completely. The alarms went off in waves. Red light flooding through corridors that had been cold and silent since the last rotation crew went under. Cryopods lined the walls by the hundreds, each one sealed with frost around the edges, each one holding a person who had volunteered for something that most of the world did not know existed. Commander Ryan Beck was one of them. The pod opened with a long hiss and a cloud of cold vapor, and Beck hit the floor on his hands and knees, coughing hard, the way a person coughs when their lungs are remembering how to work after months of doing almost nothing. His hands were shaking. His vision was blurry at the edges. Around him, he could hear other pods opening, other people stumbling out, voices overlapping in the fog. "Is this a drill?" Someone checked the status board. "My legs are not working properly." Beck grabbed the wall communicator with one unsteady hand. "Control, this is Beck. What is our situation?" The voice that came back was calm and professional. "Commander, we received Protocol Prometheus authorization 19 minutes ago. All systems coming online. This is not a drill." Beck straightened up slowly. His vision cleared. The shaking in his hand stopped. 30 years. 30 years of training, waiting, preparing for a day that everyone hoped would never come. He had given up a normal life for this. A lot of people had. He looked down the corridor at the rows of pods still opening, men and women stumbling out into the red light, confused and cold and slowly understanding. "Tell Admiral Cole," Beck said quietly, "that we will be ready." The hangar doors moved slowly, like they were being careful, like whatever was behind them deserved a proper reveal. Beck stood on the observation platform above the main bay, still feeling the last of the cryo stiffness in his shoulders, holding a cup of coffee that one of the junior crew had pushed into his hand without being asked. He had not taken a single sip. He did not need it. What he was looking at was doing a better job of waking him up than any coffee ever could. The doors finished opening. 57 warships hung in the darkness of the hollowed asteroid, arranged in rows so precise they looked like they had been placed by hand. Each one was painted in matte black so deep and flat that they barely registered as solid objects. They did not reflect light. They absorbed it. Standing there in the bay, they looked less like vehicles and more like holes cut into the universe. Beck had seen them before. Obviously, he had spent years working alongside them, running drills around them, learning every system on every ship until he could describe each one from memory in the dark. But there was something different about seeing them now, fully crewed, fully armed, fully awake, something that settled into the chest and sat there heavy and certain. These were not exploration ships. They were not diplomatic vessels or science platforms or cargo haulers with few guns bolted on. There was not a single unnecessary curve on any of them. No decoration, no elegance, nothing that did not serve a direct function. Every surface was either a weapon port, an armor plate, a sensor array, or an engine. Humans had looked at the question of how to build a warship and had answered it as honestly as they possibly could. The flagship sat at the center of the formation, 2 kilometers long, roughly rectangular, with a front end that tapered into something almost like a hammerhead. Its name was painted on the hull in letters just large enough to read from the platform. Retribution. Around it, slightly smaller but no less brutal looking, hung the rest of the dreadnoughts. Vengeance on the left, Fury on the right, Reckoning and Devastation behind, with the rest of the fleet fanned out in a wide formation that filled the entire bay. Someone came to stand beside Beck. He knew without looking. Dr. Diane Grant had been the program's chief engineer for 11 years, and she had a habit of appearing quietly next to people and waiting for them to notice her. She was holding a data tablet and smiling in the way a person smiles when they have worked very hard on something for a very long time and are finally being allowed to show it off. "How are we looking?" Beck asked. "Better than when you went under," she said. "We finished the kinetic cannon upgrades on all ships during the last rotation. Each dreadnought is now carrying 48 fusion warheads and 2,000 smart missiles per ship." She paused. "The missiles can operate completely independently. No radio contact needed. They find their own targets, and they do not stop until they hit something." Beck thought about that for a moment. 2,000 missiles per ship, 57 ships. The math was not complicated, and the result was not comfortable to think about if you were on the receiving end. "The aliens are going to expect energy weapons," he said. "Plasma cannons, beam arrays, the kind of weapons every other species in the galaxy seems to use." Diane nodded. "They are going to get chunks of metal moving at 10% of light speed instead." "Good." Captain Steve Hartley met him at the airlock of the Retribution, falling into step beside him as they walked toward the bridge. Hartley had been Beck's second in command for 12 years. Quiet, precise, the kind of person who triple-checked everything not out of anxiety, but out of genuine care for getting things right. "Ship status?" Beck asked. "All green. Weapons loaded. Crew at full readiness. We can move in 18 hours. "The rest of the fleet?" "Same across the board. Everyone is ready. The base crews are asking if they can come with us." Hartley glanced sideways. "I told them probably not." "They stay?" Beck said. "If we fail, humanity needs a backup." The bridge of the Retribution was nothing like the bridges on regular Earth ships. No windows, no comfortable seats, no artwork on the walls or little personal touches on the consoles. Just screens, controls, and the people trained to use them. The crew moved quietly and efficiently, checking systems that had already been checked, then checking them again. Beck sat down in his command chair. Plain metal, no cushion, slightly too upright to ever be comfortable. He had always liked that about it. Comfort was for peacetime. He opened a channel to Admiral Cole. Cole appeared on the main screen, looking like a man running on 3 hours of sleep and pure determination. Behind him, Beck could see the controlled chaos of Earth Defense Command. People moving fast, screens full of data. "Admiral," Beck said, "the Black Armada is awake. All 57 ships ready and waiting. Just give us the word." Cole looked at him for a moment without speaking. Then, "You have full authorization, Commander. Everything we built, everything we trained for, it all comes down to the next 18 hours. He paused. "Show them what humans are made of." The channel closed. Beck turned to face his crew. Every face on that bridge was looking back at him. Some were young, on their first real deployment. Some were veterans who had been part of the program almost as long as Beck himself. All of them had given up something to be here. Normal lives, normal careers, the ability to tell their families what they actually did for a living. "All right," Beck said quietly. "Let's go." High Commander Voss had done this exact thing 43 times. Different systems, different species, different faces on the screen when he delivered the ultimatum, but the pattern never changed. Young civilizations always went through the same stages. First came the anger, the chest puffing, the threats that meant nothing. Then came the silence while reality settled in. Then came the panic. And finally, always, came the surrender. He was currently watching the panic stage. His communications officer had been reading out human broadcasts for the past several hours. Colony evacuation orders. Desperate calls between ships. Civilian channels flooded with frightened voices asking questions nobody could answer. From several of the outer worlds, there were already signals that looked like population movements. People trying to get somewhere safer, though Voss could not imagine where they thought safer was. It was the same every time. Completely predictable. He floated near the front viewport of his bridge, watching the small blue planet in the distance. It was honestly a pretty world. Lots of water, lots of green, swirling white clouds. He felt nothing in particular about what was going to happen to it if the humans chose wrong. Sentiment was not something the Gemini Council had much use for. Order was what mattered. Stability was what mattered. And humanity, young and fast-moving and completely unwilling to ask permission for anything, was a disruption to both. Any significant military activity? He asked without turning around. Nothing beyond their standard patrol fleet, commander, 12 vessels, light armament. They appeared to be holding defensive positions around the homeworld. His tactical officer paused. "Honestly, sir, I think they know they cannot fight. They are just going through the motions." Voss pulsed slowly. A few more hours, maybe less. The humans would broadcast their surrender on all frequencies. Their leaders would appear on screen looking broken, and another species would be folded quietly into the protective structure of the hegemony. It was not cruel. It was simply how the galaxy worked. Someone had to maintain order. Someone had to make the decisions. That was what 400 years of careful governance had built. He was still thinking this when his sensor officer made a sound that was not a word, just a sharp intake of breath, the kind that happens when the brain sees something and cannot immediately process it. "Commander." The officer's voice had changed completely. Flat, careful, the voice of someone trying to stay professional, while something in their chest dropped through the floor. "I am reading energy signatures. Multiple contacts. Location, bearing 360. A pause, and 225. Another pause, longer, and 090. And the officer stopped. Voss turned around, finished the report. The officer looked up from his console, and for the first time in Voss's memory, his sensor officer looked genuinely frightened. "Sir, they are on every bearing. All directions. Above, below every angle. I am counting." He stopped again. 57 contacts. All power signatures active. All weapon systems hot. The bridge went completely silent. Then the black ships appeared. They came out of nothing, decloaking in perfect synchronization, surrounding the hegemony fleet, so completely that there was not a single gap in the formation. They were enormous and dark and utterly without elegance. No smooth hulls, no soft lighting, no graceful lines. Just dense, brutal machinery pointed directly at everything Voss commanded. Someone on the bridge screamed something. The words did not matter. The humans did not send a warning. They did not make a speech. They did not give Voss a chance to respond or negotiate or even fully understand what he was looking at. The missiles came first. Not dozens, not hundreds, thousands, launching from every ship simultaneously, filling the space between the fleets in seconds. The hegemony point defense systems came alive immediately, picking off incoming projectiles with practiced efficiency. They had been designed by some of the finest tactical minds in 400 civilizations. They were genuinely excellent systems. They were built to stop energy weapons, plasma bolts, beam arrays, The kind of weapons every spacefaring civilization in the known galaxy used, because energy was clean and precise and controllable. Nobody had told them about kinetic rounds. The first wave of solid metal projectiles, each one the mass of a small building, moving at a significant fraction of light speed, hit the hegemony shields like nothing the shields had ever been asked to stop, because they had never been asked to stop something like that. The shields were not designed for it. The math simply did not work in their favor. Physics did not care about 400 years of galactic tradition. The first ship went dark in 40 seconds. Voss watched it happen and could not move. His mind kept trying to find the frame of reference, the tactical context, the thing that explained what he was seeing. There was none. This was not how space battles worked. This was not how any civilized species fought. The second ship went dark, then the third. He grabbed his communications panel. All ships, redistribute shield power to physical impact absorption, reroute. His own ship shook so hard that 2 officers fell from their stations. The battle lasted 11 minutes. That was the part that Beck would think about later, sitting quietly in his command chair, while damage reports came in from across the fleet. Not the scale of it, not the tactics, not even the outcome, just the time. 11 minutes. 43 years of hegemony expansion. For 100 years of galactic order, 12 ships the size of cities, and it had taken 11 minutes. Casualties, he asked. His tactical officer checked the board carefully before answering. 3 ships with minor hull damage, sir. All crew accounted for. No fatalities. Beck nodded once and said nothing for a long moment. Outside the viewport, the debris field drifted slowly in every direction, catching the distant light of the sun in small cold flashes. 12 ships reduced to scattered fragments. He felt no particular satisfaction about it, just a quiet, settled certainty that the people who had built these ships and trained these crews and given 30 years of their lives to a program that was never supposed to exist had done exactly what they came here to do. He opened a channel to Admiral Cole. "It's done, sir." The Hegemony Council had been meeting for 400 years without interruption. Every major decision about galactic order, every expansion approval, every species assessment, every ultimatum delivered to every young civilization that grew too fast or asked too many questions, all of it had passed through this council. 400 years of unbroken authority. They had never lost a fleet. They had never been refused. They had never once sat in their chamber and waited for a response from a species they had already condemned and felt anything resembling uncertainty. They were feeling it now. The transmission arrived 17 hours after the debris field stopped moving. No formal header. No diplomatic language. No request for negotiation or mercy or terms. Just a direct feed, open signal, broadcast on every frequency simultaneously, so that anyone within range could pick it up. And in a galaxy where information traveled fast and curious ears were everywhere, that meant a great many people heard it before the council had even finished watching it once. Admiral James Cole appeared on screen looking like a man who had slept maybe 4 hours and did not particularly care. He was in his uniform, but he had not bothered with the formal jacket, just a plain gray undershirt, a cup of something hot in his hand, sitting at his desk like a man making a routine report to people he was not especially impressed by. There was no anger in his face, no triumph either, just a kind of flat, direct calm that somehow landed harder than either of those things would have. He looked straight into the camera, and he spoke slowly and clearly, the way a person speaks when they want to make absolutely sure there is no room for misunderstanding. "You came to our home. You showed up uninvited, and you told us to get on our knees or you would burn everything we had ever built. You called us primitive. You called us a threat to stability. You looked at everything humanity had worked for across 17 worlds, and you decided it needed to be erased." He paused for just a moment. "You were wrong. Wrong about what we were. Wrong about what we had built. Wrong about how this was going to go." He took a slow breath. "The fleet you sent is gone. Every ship. 11 minutes. We want you to think about that number. Not because we're proud of it, though we are, but because we want you to understand something. Those 57 ships you encountered were not our main fleet. They were not our best technology. They were a message, same as yours was. And our message is this." He leaned forward slightly. "If the Council sends another fleet to the system, or to any system where humans live, we will be waiting. And the next time, we will not stop at 12 ships. The transmission ended there. No formal closing. No signature. Just silence and a blank screen. The council chamber stayed quiet for a very long time after the feed cut out, because the transmission had not just reached the council. It had reached everyone. Trading stations and research outposts and the home worlds of a dozen civilizations had all picked up the open signal. Within hours, the footage of the battle was moving through every information network in the known galaxy. 12 hegemony vessels reduced to floating debris in 11 minutes by ships that appeared in official records nowhere, by a species that had been given 72 hours to surrender and had spent those hours doing something else entirely. The calls started coming into the council chambers from member civilizations shortly after. Not angry calls, not demands for explanation, just quiet, careful, very pointed questions about whether the council's assessment of humanity had perhaps been slightly off. Nobody sent a second fleet, not in the weeks that followed, not in the months. The Hegemony Council issued a formal statement about ongoing diplomatic review processes and the importance of measured response, which is the kind of language organizations use when they need time to quietly change their position without admitting they were wrong. Beck was standing at the viewport of the Retribution when the news came through that the council had officially withdrawn the ultimatum. He had a cup of coffee, finally a real one, not the recycled station variety, but actual ground beans that someone on the crew had been saving for a significant occasion. Steve Hartley came to stand beside him. They both looked out at the stars for a while, without saying anything. Think they actually got the message? Hartley asked eventually. Beck took a sip of his coffee. They got it. The stars looked the same as they always had. Distant, cold, scattered across the dark in every direction. But they felt different now. Or maybe Beck just saw them differently. Out there somewhere behind that darkness were 400 civilizations that had spent centuries deciding who was allowed to exist and on what terms. Ancient species with ancient power who had looked at humanity and seen something small and manageable and easy to fold into line. Beck thought about the people sleeping in cryopods back at Station 7. The engineers who had spent careers building ships in secret. The crew members on 57 black warships who had given up ordinary lives to train for a day that most of the world had not known was coming. He thought about Cole sitting at his desk in a plain gray shirt, talking to the most powerful governing body in the galaxy, like he was leaving a note for a neighbor. He thought about 11 minutes. You know what the funny thing is? Hartley said quietly, they probably still think they own the galaxy. Beck looked out at the stars. All those old civilizations, ancient and certain, and completely unused to being told no by anyone. Maybe, he said, but they know who lives in this corner of it now. He finished his coffee. Outside, Earth was a small blue shape in the distance, ordinary and beautiful and still there. That was enough.